Okay, good morning. Let's call our meeting to order. We start with roll call.
Commissioner Pinter,
Here.
Commissioner Odorizio, Commissioner Tedesco,
Here.
Commissioner Hodge, Commissioner Henry.
Here. All right, will you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move.
Motion and a second. Thank you. Is that everyone?
No, Eva. I had my copy.
Okay. All right. Passes unanimously. Seeing no awards and presentations, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
We do not.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience? Okay. Seeing a lack of people rushing the podium, we'll move on to elected officials communication. Anything from my colleagues this morning? All right, y'all. Moving on to our very short consent calendar, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Passes unanimously. We are moving right along. New business, county manager.
Good morning, Commissioners. The first item before you is a resolution approving the use of state-awarded agreements for the purchase of computers to fulfill the county's computer replacement schedule, and our all-star employee, Raymond Saltavon, will be presenting this item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, this resolution is regarding the annual computer replacements project. Our computers have a 4-year life cycle, so ITI plans and budgets to replace approximately 25% every year. The 2020 budget for these replacements totals $477,100. The state of Colorado has awarded agreements to a number of firms for purchasing computers. These agreements include competitive pricing and cooperative language, which adhere to the Adams County Purchasing Policy, Appendix E, Cooperative Single Sole Source Purchases. ITI and the Purchasing Division are requesting the use of state-awarded firms for the purchase of computers for 2020 in an amount not to exceed $477,100. May I answer any questions you have?
Any questions? All right, thank you, and thank you for the detailed information we got in our packet. Seeing no questions, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that item 1, 20-141 be approved as read. Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item before you is a resolution approving agreement between Adams County and Pictometry International Corporation for aerial imagery services, and Greg Baca with our ITI department will be presenting this item.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Another all-star employee.
They all are.
Yes.
Thank you, Ray. So pictometry, if you don't know, it's the aerial imagery we use to see 360 degrees around any property in the county, and many agencies use it, and the system's delivered via GIS, or it's available online as well. Don't know if you had any questions.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on these comments or anything in the packet on this item? Seeing no questions, do we have a motion?
Chairs, I so move the resolution approving an agreement between Adams County and Pictometry International Corporation for aerial imagery services.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second.
Oh, you have it.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Anything else, County Manager?
No other business this morning.
Okay. County Attorney, what do you have for us this morning?
Good morning, Commissioners. I would ask, as time allows today, that we go into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 246402(4)B and E for the purpose of receiving legal advice and instructing negotiators regarding the Young, Argo, Hanson, Espinoza, and Wise claims.
Okay. Hearing that, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, County Attorney. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right. Moving right along, we have 3 land use hearings this morning. The first case is Dream Acres. Would you like a few minutes to set up the PowerPoint? Oh, okay. All right, let's take 5 minutes. Okay, we'll just get back on the record, start with our first land use case. If staff could come forward and we could start the presentation for PRC 2018-25 Dream Acres.
Good morning, Commissioners. My
Good
name is
morning.
Layla Bajlan. I'm with the Community Economic Development Department. And the case before you today is PRC 2018-00025, and this is the JRJK Dream Acres. And the address of the request is 13830 and 13850 Franklin Street. So in this request, the applicant is requesting a rezone from Agricultural 3 to Agricultural 1 and a major subdivision preliminary plat to create 3 lots from the existing 3 parcels. So staff and the applicant are requesting a continuance due to the applicant being out of the county for this public hearing, and this continuance would allow for staff to send sufficient legal notice to property owners. So staff today recommends continuing the request to the February 25th, 2020 Board of County Commissioners meeting agenda. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, move to continue PRC 2018-00025. The applicant is, based on the recommendation on the screen, to allow staff to send sufficient legal notice and the applicant to be present. This would be continued to February 20th, 2020.
25th.
25th, you're right, sorry.
We can get you glasses.
Yeah, February 25th.
Motion and a second. All right, passes unanimously. Are we ready on Pecos Logistic Park?
We are.
Great.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Greg Barnes with the Adams County Community and Economic Development Department, and the next application before you is known as Pecos Logistics Park. It's at 5751 North Pecos Street. And this application comes to you in 3 parts. The first part is a preliminary plat for a major subdivision. It would create 3 lots over an approximately 67-acre area. The second part is a roadway vacation, and that would vacate an unused portion of the right-of-way along North Pecos Street. And then the third part of the application is a waiver from subdivision design standards, and that would vary the design of West 56th Avenue along the frontage of the property with the intent of reducing impacts on adjoining property owners to the south. A little background on these applications. This applicant is proposing a large development of about 67 acres, which would be 1.1 million square feet of industrial building area. The applicant proposes this to be either a business park or a heavy logistics center or somewhere in between those 2 uses, and would be multi-tenant. In 2019, this board approved the Pecos Logistics Park Metro District. That Metro District would provide a variety of services to the proposed development, including security, fire suppression, and drainage maintenance. The site itself is located in the center of the screen here. The highlighted parcels indicate where it would be located, and it's on the northwest corner of West 56th Avenue, which forms the southern border of the site, and North Pecos Street, which forms the eastern border of the site. It's just south of the I-76 interchange for North Pecos Street. And a closer view of the affected parcels shows that the property is currently being used by Rocky Mountain Pre-Stress. That user is abandoning the site for the redevelopment. And as I mentioned, it's on the corner of 56th Avenue and Pecos Street. To the north of the site is the Union Pacific Railroad. And to the west of the site is Vallejo Street. Tejon Street also runs north into the site. Just for illustrative purposes, the right-of-way vacation is located here along North Pecos Street, and the subdivision design standards waiver is located on the southern side of the lot along West 56th Avenue. Currently, there's a mix of zone districts in this area. There's a few pockets of residential 1C along this northern panhandle and here along the southern portions of the site. There's a pocket of Industrial 1, Industrial 2, but largely the entire site is I3. The majority of it is currently zoned for heavy industrial. If this preliminary plat is approved, the applicant does plan to file applications for a final plat to finalize the subdivision and a rezoning application which would rezone the entire site to industrial 2. If that future rezoning is approved, the zoning map would look like this, and there would be a consistent zoning throughout the entire subdivision. The county's comprehensive plan has designated a future land use of industrial in this area. That's consistent with employment centers and business parks as being proposed. The criteria for evaluating a major subdivision preliminary plat includes consistency with our county's comprehensive plan, consistency with the purpose of our development standards, as well as complying with the subdivision design standards. We want to make sure that there's adequate water supply, evidence of sewage disposal, any topographical issues have been identified, drainage improvements can be provided to support the subdivision, conformance with the zone district's density standards, and that the request is harmonious and compatible to the general area. For the roadway vacation, we're looking for compliance with our development standards, that the vacation of right-of-way doesn't create a nonconformity, that the request is consistent with the purpose of our standards, it doesn't affect the health, safety, and welfare of the general public, and that the right-of-way vacation does not inhibit access for other property owners. And then finally, for the waiver of subdivision design standards, we're looking for that any hardships or practical difficulties that are on the site restrict compliance with our county's typical standards, that the alternative design serves the purpose to a greater extent, and that the waiver request doesn't nullify any standards. So first, let's talk about the preliminary plat. As I mentioned, there are 3 lots, including that roadway vacation, that are part of this part of this preliminary plat. Lot 1, shown here in red, is about 20 acres in area. Lot 2, just to the north of that, would be 24 acres. And then Lot 3 would be 18 acres, shown here in green. There are 3 tracts. The largest is this drainage tract along the northern panhandle of the site, which would be about 4 acres and is directly adjacent to the single-family residential subdivision. And then there are 2 tracts along Vallejo Street and West 56, which would be used for landscaping and to help create that compatibility with the adjoining residential properties. The development standards for the proposed I2 district includes a minimum lot size of 2 acres, a minimum lot width of 125 feet. As shown in that preliminary plat, all of the lots would conform to those standards, and when minimum setbacks are assessed, each of the 3 lots would be buildable. Water service would be provided by Denver Water, sanitation by Berkeley Sanitation, electrical service by Excel Energy, and any other services can be provided by the Pecos Logistics Park Metro District. The roadway vacation is shown here, and this is essentially a driveway apron along North Pecos. There's an overpass heading north on North Pecos. Cargill Drive is this circuitous drive located directly to the east of the site, and the applicant is proposing to vacate this back to the lot. For the subdivision design standards, it's along West 56th Avenue. The applicant has a pretty in-depth presentation on the actual proposed waiver. However, the intent is to limit the impact on these single-family homes, which are directly on the south side of West 56th Avenue. The top of the screen shows the county standard, which is an 80-foot wide right-of-way with attached sidewalks. And the applicant will give more detail on this, but they are proposing an alternative design which would have detached sidewalks and center most of that development on their own property rather than on the adjacent properties to the south. The applicant did provide a conceptual site plan of what this business park or heavy logistics center would look like. There would be 7 buildings in all, and most of the site would be accessed from Pecos Street. As part of those waivers, traffic can access Tejon Street, but most of the truck traffic will go through the site and come on and off North Pecos to limit the activity for the surrounding subdivision. The applicant did provide a few renderings of what this proposed development could look like. And then staff has provided some pictures of what the current site looks like. So this is on Tejon Street, looking into the center of the site currently. As I mentioned, Rocky Mountain Pre-Stress currently uses the site, but will be vacating the lot for redevelopment. This is looking from Pecos near the intersection with Cargill into the site to the southwest. This is looking to the north. This is the Pecos overpass here. This is north on Pecos. This is what Pecos Street currently looks like. And this is 56th Avenue. The single-family residential homes are located on the south side. There's a rather large wall, about 7 feet tall, along the frontage here with no sidewalks. And then this is looking to the west along 56th Avenue as well. And then this is Vallejo Street, which forms the western boundary looking to the north and to the south. During the referral period, we notified all property owners and occupants of structures within 1,000 feet. We sent 458 notices. We got 3 comments regarding this subdivision case. And those comments were mainly concerned about traffic, compatibility with the residential neighborhood, and design. After receiving those comments, the applicant did refine their plan to make some of the modifications that have been discussed in this presentation. During the referral period, we received no objections to this plat. All the concerns were related to future development, and those comments have been shared with the applicant. Staff has found that this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It complies with the minimum zone district standards that are currently in place and will be in the future if rezoned to I-2, that the request is compatible with the surrounding area, and that services and utilities can be provided to support the development. The Planning Commission heard this case on January 23rd. There was one public comment that was concerned with traffic and how that would affect the neighborhood directly to the south. The Planning Commission ultimately voted 7-0 for approval of this application. Staff has added an additional condition since the staff report was written based on advice from our county attorney's office. This condition would ensure that the applicant complies with state statutes for mineral owners' rights. And then there were 2 notes that the Planning Commission did recommend before you. So, in summary, this application is before you with a recommendation of approval with 18 findings of fact, 1 condition, and 2 notes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions? Okay. Do we have the applicant here? Come on down, introduce yourselves, and start your presentation.
Thank you for your time. Matt Mitchell, Westfield Development Company. We are at 4221 Brighton Boulevard in Denver.
Jason Miller with Westfield Development, same address.
So this is a rather large project we're proposing, so we've provided a lot of detail here. Hopefully it gives you a full picture of our vision. But we acquired this site about a year ago, a little over a year ago, from Rocky Mountain Pre-Stress. Subject site currently is occupied by Rocky Mountain Pre-Stress and operated as a heavy outdoor manufacturing site for concrete construction members. Rocky Mountain Pre-Stress, now owned by Wells Concrete, needs to grow their business, and they know that their use is no longer compatible with the neighborhood, so they will be relocating to Brighton this summer. Wells operates a very intense use on the site. It's dirty, it's loud, it's pretty unsightly. So we're proposing to replace Wells with a premier Class A industrial logistics park. The proposed project will redevelop a 67-acre site that hasn't seen significant improvement in over 60 years. We'll transform an outdoor manufacturing site into a far less intense logistics park where operations occur inside 7 Class A buildings. The project will be master planned and professionally landscaped with a cohesive set of architectural detail that gives the scale of these buildings an approachable feel. With a mix of materials, depth, and facades, we intend to provide unprecedented architecture and appeal to our park. We do plan the park to be built out in 2 phases. Phase 1 will be buildings 1, 2, 3, and 7, followed pretty closely by phase 2, which will be buildings 4, 5, and 6. In Building 7, in the back of the park, we actually have agreed to terms with a Fortune 100 company that Max Daffron with Adams County Community and Economic Development Department has been working with for over 9 months to bring to Adams County, and they're going to bring over 300 jobs with them. One way we plan to make this the premier logistics park in Colorado is by offering a first-of-its-kind shared amenity space for park employees. It's going to be available at will for tenants and employees. It'll include conference rooms and flexible meeting space, a kitchen with indoor and outdoor seating, and a secured bike facility with showers. Employees of our park will actually be able to ride their bike to work, securely park their bike, shower on site in a lockable restroom, and then walk to their individual unit within the park. We anticipate this space will be used for meetings on demand for any of the employees and tenants of the park. We'll offer employee and tenant appreciation events periodically, and we'll also offer employment drive events where residents of Adams County can actually come to the site and learn about potential employment opportunities within the park. We do expect this project to generate enormous economic benefit to the area. We estimate it'll create approximately 875 jobs. That, as I said earlier, 300 of those jobs are specific to the user we've agreed to terms with for Building 7. And those are going to range anywhere from warehouse employees and forklift operators to actually significant office space for corporate marketing and corporate sales staff that are earning six-figure salaries. So, I mean, it is a wide range of compensation. It's also going to greatly increase the tax revenue from this property. Our 2009 tax bill was $423,000. In 2022, upon full build-out, we estimate it'll be more like $3 to $3.7 million. Now I want to address truck traffic. I know that's a big concern. We heard you loud and clear at our last time we stood up here that you're concerned about the truck traffic that this park could generate. So the location is ideal for its proximity to the Pecos exit on I-76. It really makes the logistics park the highest and best use for this site. We anticipate nearly all truck traffic to come from 76 and Pecos. The design does contemplate a new signalized intersection at Pecos. We expect all the trucks to enter the site via I-76 through the new traffic signal. We also anticipate all of our truck traffic will exit the site and get back to I-76 as quickly as possible, because logistics is all about quick access to the major roadway infrastructure. We do plan to provide pretty extensive park-wide signage, so every truck exiting a loading area from each individual building will be directed to exit to Pecos Street only. And if we do have any trucks that attempt to ignore those signs and exit on Tejon, we've provided a left turn only to get them back to Pecos Street and out of the neighborhood as quickly as possible. Additionally, we are not proposing any kind of ingress or egress to the site along Vallejo Street. This wouldn't be appropriate. Now let's talk about all traffic, not just truck traffic. The site does have 3 points of access as proposed. One is the existing curb cut for the site across Pecos from Cargill Drive. That will become a right-in, right-out with a pork chop feature in the intersection, such that it will be only accommodating personal vehicles, not trucks. The new signalized intersection will be our main front door, and then we will have secondary access maintained on Tejon Street and West 56th Avenue. Based on our traffic impact study, we anticipate 88% of inbound traffic and 88% of outbound traffic to occur along Pecos. As a result, only 12% of our total traffic in and out will be along Tejon and 56, and we anticipate most of those will be personal vehicles, not trucks. And upon full build-out, with full traffic counts from the park, only 17.1% of the total trips per day on that corridor of Pecos from 56th Avenue to 76 will be coming in and out of the park. And likewise, on the 56th and Tejon intersection, only 15.8% of the cars that travel through that intersection each day will be traffic from or going to or coming from our park. Level of service, as I'm sure you know, is a qualitative term used by traffic engineers to describe operating conditions a driver will experience while traveling a specific corridor. Our traffic impact study proves out that the new Pecos signalized entry will have an A level of service. Currently, the intersection at Pecos and West 56th Avenue operates at a B level of service. At full park build-out with our traffic load and the CIP project improving Pecos complete, it will be improved to an A level of service. And then the intersection at Tejon and West 56th Avenue currently operates at an A level of service. It will continue to operate at an A level of service with our full traffic count. Again, at full park build-out with full trip counts a day and completion of the CIP project on Pecos, the corridor will actually operate more safely and more efficiently than it does today. Now let's talk about what we're doing to move trucks efficiently on and off of Pecos and discourage them from using West 56th Avenue. So the proposed signalized intersection at the park's main entry has been designed in concert with Adams County Public Works and is reflected in the current CIP design. The intersection will accommodate truck turns in and out of the park without wide swings into oncoming traffic. Southbound trucks can make a right-hand turn in without swinging out into the through lane next to them. Outbound trucks that are now coming out across from Cargill Drive on a nearly blind turn, pulling out into oncoming traffic, they'll now have a signal change at that new intersection where they can safely pull out onto Pecos without impacting traffic. And then we'll provide a new monument sign encouraging all of our trucks to enter the park at our main entrance. For reference, the distance from the bottom of the flyover bridge to our right-in, right-out proposed entry is 100 feet. We actually moved it south from its current location slightly to provide ample line of sight so that cars can pull out of there on that right only in a safe manner. And then the distance from the flyover bridge to the stop bar at that new intersection is 380 feet. Just giving it enough relief from the downhill slope of that trucks can come to a nice, easy, slow pace to make that turn in. Here you see the 56 road section from Pecos to Tejon. The current condition of the 56th and Pecos intersection has a large radius right-hand turn for that southbound truck. It actually is inviting for trucks to make that turn down West 56th Avenue. The Pecos CIP plan eliminates this condition in favor of two southbound through lanes with a hard right-hand turn. That's going to make that movement for trucks nearly impossible. So just the design feature, the way it's designed, will effectively limit trucks from getting on West 56th Avenue. They're going to have a hard time doing it. Clearly, drivers would rather use the new signalized intersection on Pecos with an A level of service than bypass it to try to make that turn. Now, if a truck does manage to get on West 56th Avenue, we provided a wide enough radius turn onto Tejon to get them off of West 56 and into the park without having to swing wide into that intersection, which would be an unsafe condition for the residential neighbors driving through that intersection. And vehicles turning out of Tejon have enough ability to make that left-hand turn to get back to Pecos so they don't have to go south on Tejon further into the neighborhood. Again, it's all with an eye towards keeping trucks out of the neighborhood as much as possible. And lastly, the exit lane on Tejon, we're striping it to 12 feet. That makes a right-hand turn onto West 56th Avenue west deeper into the neighborhood, headed back towards Federal, impossible. Now let's talk about what we're doing to make sure our project is compatible with the neighborhood. So we had our neighborhood meeting. It's been about a year. Again, we've been working with the planning department for quite some time to try to get this right. And the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. They liked the high-quality project. They liked the economic benefit. They really liked the right-of-way improvements and the connectivity to the light rail. You know, today there is no sidewalk from the neighborhood to the Pecos Junction light rail station. And then in December, we followed up with a 11-page letter to 46 neighbors detailing our progress, our updated proposal, and design features. And those recipients included neighbors that directly adjoin the property, any neighbors that attended our neighborhood meeting, and any neighbors that have reached out to us or the county through the referral process. And that resulted in a few phone calls, several email exchanges, and one in-person meeting. Here you see the proposed street section on West 56th Avenue. Again, we're proposing, this was designed with Public Works, again, to discourage truck traffic from using West 56th Avenue and maintaining the on-street parking for the residents on the south side of the street. So it's 13-foot travel lanes in each direction and a 7-foot parking lane along the curb for the residents, a 5-foot detached sidewalk in public right-of-way, and then we're providing a 10-foot landscape buffer And then that length of the park will actually have a 10-foot retaining wall interior to the park, such that the neighbors and folks driving on West 56 will be at a much higher elevation and will not be able to see the majority of the traffic, vehicles, truck loading within the park. That's really going to serve to limit the transfer of sound and light into the neighborhood. Headlights won't shine into the people's front doors across 56. The West 56 new sidewalk will connect to a 10-foot attached sidewalk on Pecos. That's part of the CIP plan, providing direct pedestrian and biker-friendly access to the Pecos Junction light rail station. This is a shot of the existing condition from the neighborhood looking north across West 56th Avenue into the park, and what our proposed development will look like. Again, 5-foot detached sidewalk, a 10-foot landscape buffer with a continuous hedge, an architectural steel wire fence, and then that 10-foot retaining wall, such that the neighbors looking across the street will see the top half of our panel walls. They won't see the entire building. They won't see the wall pack lighting. They won't see the vehicles circulating the south end of the park. Again, the professional landscaping, we feel it's a much better condition, much more approachable, much more aesthetically pleasing for the neighborhood. Similarly, on Vallejo, you have an existing and after shot. The existing, they have a 6-foot concrete T and concrete panel wall on the property line. Our proposed development would back that up a minimum of 15 feet, up to as wide as 25 feet in certain sections for a landscape buffer zone. And then we're proposing a 10-foot decorative block wall, again with the goal of blocking light and sound from carrying into the neighborhood and screening vision of operations within the park. A follow-up on this, which is not reflected here in the rendering, is the Vallejo improvements will now include curb, gutter, and sidewalk as well. There's currently no sidewalk on either side of Vallejo there. So we are providing 2 landscape buffer tracks in our preliminary plat. One is here along West 56th Avenue. So you'll have the improved right-of-way, detached sidewalk, 10-foot landscape buffer, and then our buildings will be set back 82 feet from the property line. And then on Vallejo, we're providing a minimum 15-foot, as wide as 25-foot landscape buffer zone the entire length of our western property line. The county requires a 15-foot landscape buffer with a 6-foot fence to transition from existing residential to new industrial. Right now, we only have 2 single-family homes at our very northwest and very southwest corner that we're directly adjoining property line with. The rest of our perimeter of our site is separated by public right-of-way where no buffer zone is required. Nevertheless, it's just the right thing to do to provide sufficient buffer here. So 25 feet on the ends where we are directly abutting residential. It skinnies down to 15 feet along Vallejo Street. Inside the wall, there's an additional 15 feet of landscaping and a 190-foot truck court, such that the building in the west end of the park will be set back 230 feet from the property line.
So our design also takes into account how we mitigated the light pollution entering the neighborhood to the west. So this is a photometric analysis that we put together of the current design for the building that we do plan on building. As you can see here, the design of the wall reduces the amount of light going past our property line. The light that does get past our property line is a zigzag line, follow my scroll here, and that stops at the middle of Vallejo Street, so 0 light gets within the neighborhood from our park. And the light that does reach the middle of Vallejo, you can see is 0.1 foot candles, which is a deep twilight zone. So again, we feel very confident with that. The second consideration is sound to the neighbors. In early January, for 48 hours, we did a sound study, an acoustical study with D.L. Adams, local sound acoustician. And what we used was Rocky Mountain Pre-Stress's on-site activities as the upper gauge of what those sounds are. And it's important to state that our activities are going to be considerably less, but since we don't have that tangible data, we use the higher levels from Rocky Mountain pre-stress. The average decibel reading over that 48 hours along 56th Street was 62 decibels. The average decibel reading, again, in that 48-hour period along Vallejo Street was 63 decibels. Our acoustician indicated that the building of the wall along 56th Street as well as the wall along Vallejo Street will reduce the decibel readings by 3 decibels. Though that may not sound like a large number, that does equate to 18.7% reduction in sound. And when you look at that, the zoning code does allow for a daytime decibel of 80 and a nighttime decibel of 75. Our build out will be at 59 and 60 respectively, so we do plan on being considerably less than that allowed per code.
So we do believe our project is very compatible with the area. It is consistent with the county's comprehensive plan. And we believe, or we hope, it'll create significant positive impact for the area. And we'd be happy to address any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much for that detailed presentation. Do my colleagues have any questions? Commissioner O'Dorisio.
Yeah, I pay real close attention to a lot of the details in these cases, and you'll know probably in the last case for last time you were up here, I was really concerned about the traffic along 56th Avenue. I just want you to know how much I appreciate personally, and I can only imagine the others in the neighborhood would say the same thing. Your willingness to go back to the drawing board and include in the drawing board. I didn't say you had to go back, but to include in your plans all of these different protections, particularly for those neighborhoods. It's very clear that you listened to our concerns. I want to thank you for that because when you talk about the sidewalks and the retaining wall and the light pollution and the noise and then directing traffic out onto Pecos instead of through the neighborhood and trying to discourage the heavy truck traffic through the neighborhood, to me it shows that you guys really paid attention not just to the folks in this building, but to the folks in those other buildings, the homes in the neighborhood. So I just want you to know how much I appreciate the thoughtfulness that went into your design and the things that you presented today.
Well, Public Works was excellent to deal with them, and they had some great ideas and helped us craft some of these solutions.
I also want to, if I might, I think this is also an example, because you mentioned a few times how it's a kind of a joint effort when you include the CIP that we're going to be doing. I think that's part of what we need to continue doing is when we have growth in these neighborhoods, that if we're going to show that growth comes with benefits, not just burdens to the existing folks that live there, we need to be able to show how those CIP projects are compatible with the growth and can actually raise the bar for everyone in the neighborhood. And I think this is a perfect example where you're going to have a new development, and that's good. And the folks to the south or even to the west might historically have been nervous about new change and new development. I think when you combine what you're doing with the improvements along with the CIP, it shows when we're able as a county to step up and show the benefits of investment and growth, it's a win-win for everyone. So I want to commend also staff and the colleagues that sit up here with me for making this type of investment compatible with the new investments that are coming from the private sector. So I want to thank everyone because this is one of the better presentations I've had, and anyone in the room knows that I'm pretty critical of these types of issues when it comes to neighborhood development. So thank you.
Yeah, we're thrilled about the timing and the scope of the CIP project. I mean, it makes the site work.
All right, thank you, Commissioner O'Dorisio. Do my colleagues have anything else? Oh, Commissioner Tedesco.
So I also want to thank you for being here today. I have a couple questions, though, about traffic. As you remember at the last meeting, I had a laundry list of traffic questions and concerns for the area. The neighborhood's being very important. I think this whole board has expressed that. We come together on some of these issues as a team. I do want to ask you, though, on Pecos, when we go back to that slide and you talk about the improvements and the light at the, do you call it the Vallejo, or is it, which one is the new Pecos Street main entry, right?
Let's see here.
Do you have a picture of that. So do you have a decel lane, or is that a double lane? Because it currently is a double lane coming down the bridge. Is that utilizing the right-hand lane as the turn in?
It is,
or there going
it is
to be
using the
a-
right-hand turn. There is no decel lane provided.
No decel lane. Okay.
And with the traffic study, provided the detail that because you have the dedicated through lane to the left of it and the truck doesn't have to swing out into it to make that turn in, that corridor will operate at a level of service with the full traffic count. So it'll move efficiently despite the trucks making that right-hand turn at a green light.
Okay, and you're putting a traffic light in there. What's the distance again between that light and the existing light at 56? And then I would have a question for our staff as being, what's the impact to the traffic control in that area when you put a light that close to another light in the area?
So our, it has to be over 400 feet. I don't know the exact number. I'd have to look it up.
Well, that's
But I would say that.
I was letting you off the hook by
okay.
going after the staff.
I'd be happy to. The light will be tied to the timing of the 56, so they will work in concert. They won't work against each other.
Okay. I just want some clarification on that because we run into issues when we put lights so close together that, you know, they create either, log jams or, turning radius issues and blockage of entrances, that type of thing. So.
Sure. Matt Emmons with Community and Economic Development. I believe it's about 700 feet from the 56 intersection up to their new entrance. And typically you want a quarter mile, which is 1,480 feet for separation with lights, but they've met the warrant for basically an industrial entrance and to have a connected light. So the lights will be timed, so if you're coming down the hill and the light at their entrance goes green, by the time you get to 56, it will also go green and you'll just keep smoothly working through. Same thing in the other direction up there. So it's justified by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices and will be coordinated with the light at 56.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to hear is that you justified the light being there. The other thing that I have on this though is, what is our CIP for Pecos itself? Because on the northbound lane of Pecos, it doesn't become 2 lanes until the bottom of the bridge. And on the southbound, it narrows to 1 lane in each direction at 56.
Yeah, so I believe the CIP project is going to be 4 lanes all the way through. When they did the overpass, that was the model for the corridor through there, and they're going to bring it all the way down to 52nd, which is the county line through there. And the main focus of the CIP project, my understanding, is to increase pedestrian traffic or travelability through there, the corridor, and get them up to the train station.
And because when we talk about connectivity and using bikes and other modes of transportation, I don't believe that there's a sidewalk associated with anything south of 56, am I correct?
It ends at the bottom of the overpass.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Tedesco?
No, I do want to say that you're addressing our concerns. I mean, you did an outstanding job, and I commend you on that as well. I just appreciate you coming in and taking these concerns to heart and really going back to the drawing table and getting something done that works for everybody, and I appreciate that, so thank you.
Thank you for your patience. I know it was a long presentation.
Thank you. Anything else from my colleagues? Thank you so much, and thank you for the long presentation. So it's really helpful to see sound decibels and light and all of that laid out in the way that you did. Made it very easy to understand that changes you had made and the care you're taking with the neighbors in the community. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions, do we have anything from the public? Any citizen communication on this land use hearing?
We do not.
Okay, anyone like to come down? All right, seeing no citizen questions, anything else from my colleagues? Do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of the preliminary plat, PLT 2019-00031, approval of the waiver of subdivision design standards, PLT 2019-00032, and approval of the roadway vacation, VAC 2019-00003, with 18 findings of fact, 1 condition, and 2 notes.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second.
Passes unanimously. Thank you so much. All right, moving to our final land use of the day.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jen Rutter, Development Services Manager. I'll be presenting to you this morning case PLN 2019-15. The request is for amendments to Chapter 5 of the county's development standards and regulations specific to the traffic impact fee administration. The county's traffic impact fees were last updated 20 years ago in 1998. There's been continued population growth and demand on the county's road infrastructure, and we received direction in 2016 to begin the RFP process to begin looking at doing a study to update these traffic impact fees. In spring 2017, we hired a consultant, Tischler Bice, to conduct this study. For 2 years, we did significant public and stakeholder outreach with the Home Builders Association and developers. We had numerous study sessions with the board. And then in March 2019, the final report was issued by Tischler Bice for the traffic or transportation impact fees. And then this past December 2019, this board adopted those traffic impact fees recommended by the study. During that adoption, there was other direction provided in that resolution that we would phase in those fees over a 3-year period, that those fees would be implemented effective March 1st, 2020, that we would increase the traffic impact fees on an annual basis after the first 3 years consistent with the Consumer Price Index, and that we would allow a provision to waive fees for low to moderate income housing projects that have established an affordability period of a minimum of 20 years, and that we would amend the development standards and regulations to implement those the traffic impact study findings and recommendations, and that is why we're here today. Section 202.15 details the procedures for text amendments for the development standards and regulations. Only the Board of County Commissioners may, after a recommendation from the Planning Commission, adopt a resolution amending the text of the standards and regulations. There are 3 criteria of approval for text amendments. The amendment is consistent with the Adams County Comprehensive Plan, that is consistent with the purposes of the development standards and regulations, and the text amendment will not be detrimental to the majority of people or property in the surrounding areas, nor the community in general. So to summarize the fees, and I'll go into some of these in more detail, we are recommending to change references to the name of the study to the 2019 Transportation Impact Fee Report, that the assessment and allocation of fees through the benefit districts be divided into an east and a west. We added affordable housing exemption. We also updated the independent fee calculation formula and included an updated example. And we are proposing to remove the required three-year review of this traffic impact fee. So currently, there are only one benefit district. There's only one. It's the entire county. We're proposing to divide that into 2 benefit districts, the east and the west. That's consistent with the 2012 transportation plan. There are very different development patterns in the eastern and western parts of the county, and therefore should be considered in different manners. There were 2 different studies completed for each part of the county. The West Benefit District focuses on the traditional arterial lane capacity or CIP improvements that are needed. That's where the majority of the growth that we're seeing in the county is located. These are the associated fees that were adopted in December. There is a significant increase, but again, they haven't been updated in 20 years. So we did want to phase those in over 3 years, and so that's what this looks like here. The East Benefit District focuses on those rural road upgrades. There are many unimproved roads on the side of the county, a lot of the gravel roads out this way. And these are the associated fees, again, that were adopted in December. And they're also being phased in over 3 years. So we added an affordable housing exemption. It would be for housing that is affordable to households whose income is less than or equal to the current area median income, or AMI, only applicable to those affordable units within the overall structure, and that the required affordability period of at least 20 years, and that could be through a deed restriction, covenant, et cetera. We ran our language by Unison Housing Partners, and they did agree that that was appropriate language and that would provide some flexibility to different types of housing. So we also are proposing an update to the independent fee calculation formula. So the way the fees were calculated was based on floor area, and there are other ways that it could be measured. So if an applicant wants to use other data from their development, for example, number of employees, we will allow that. They just need to provide a study indicating as such, and then use our fee example here to calculate a proposed fee reviewed by our engineers. One example that might be beneficial for this is a warehouse. A warehouse doesn't have a lot of trips associated with it, has a lot of floor area, so it would have a large fee associated with it, but maybe only has 4 employees for the entire warehouse. Well, they can come in and demonstrate that they only have 4 employees based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers manual. There are specific data associated with that they can provide to us and demonstrate that they would meet that requirement. We are also proposing to remove the provision that requires staff to review this traffic impact fee every 3 years. It obligates us to a task that is essentially impractical and unachievable because the study itself took about 2 years to complete. To do that every 3 years, we haven't been doing that in the past. However, we do think that we can tie, or a good solution would be to tie this annual increase to the consumer price index. I think in lieu of requiring us to do that every 3 years, however, we do need to ensure that we are evaluating the traffic impact fee on a regular basis, but maybe not every 3 years. We did significant public outreach for the traffic impact fee. We had public meetings and stakeholder meetings from 2017 through 2019. We tried holding a public meeting in January of this year specific to this text amendment. No one showed up. I reached out to the Home Builders Association, and they didn't provide any comments. So this referral was sent out, and no public comments were received. We did send this request to over 250 agencies. We did have one responding with concerns. The Adams County Treasurer preferred if we would leave that 3-year review in our regulations. So staff believes that this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with the development standards regulations, and will not be detrimental to the citizens of Adams County. The Planning Commission heard this case on January 23rd, 2020. There was one public comment. They were concerned with the increased fees specific to the industrial development. The Planning Commission voted 7-0 for approval. So staff and Planning Commission are recommending approval of this case based on 3 findings of fact and 1 condition. And the condition is that staff may make changes to these text amendments through the end of February, and that these text amendments will be effective on March 1st, 2020. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Commissioner Tedesco.
So I just have a question about the review. Or is your recommendation that we're not doing a review? Because I'm a little uncomfortable with that. I do appreciate the tie to the, and I can't remember the acronym, but Consumer Price Index.
Right.
Right? I do appreciate that.
I'm not recommending no review.
Okay.
I'm just recommending that we take it out of the regulations that would obligate us to do that review every 3 years. I still think it's very important, and it certainly could be a policy by the board To do this review on a regular basis, maybe every 10 years, might be more appropriate. But to obligate us to do that in our development standards, we've been out of compliance then for 20 years. So it just seems like an impractical thing to have in our development standards.
So I will say, I think the reason we're in the position we're in right now is because it was never in there. We haven't reviewed this. I mean, I hear the attorney is anxious to say something, so.
No, I just think I was going to point out that it was in there. That's the problem.
Correct.
Oh, it was in there.
Yeah.
I just am uncomfortable with pulling it out completely. I don't have a problem with changing it to at least 10 years, because at least then you know that it has to get done, right?
Right, and I think staff and my concern with that specific language in the 3-year review was that it required to do an additional traffic impact fee study every 3 years. And like Jen said, it took 2 years just to get one. So it was really an unachievable task for staff and for our consultant to do that whole study. But if you all are okay with a 10-year review, I think we can change that language.
And let me explain. The reason being is if we leave it up to a policy, right, then we can change that at a whim. In this, at least it holds us accountable. Every 10 years, there has to be something done, right? And I believe that's what we needed. Now, I agree 3 years is probably a little short to try to do all of this, especially with all the steps involved in it. But I would be in favor of a 10-year, changing it to a 10-year, but also I love the idea of addressing it with the consumer price index and allowing that to advance that way. That way you don't see these huge increases like we're seeing now. You see it over time and it keeps up. So.
Okay, any other questions from my colleagues? All right, seeing no questions, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, may I ask the board if they are amenable to an amendment to keep in the review but changing it to a 10-year period? So it would amend what the recommendation is and keep in the review but move it to a 10-year period rather than a 3-year period.
Okay, I see a couple speakers. Commissioner Henry.
I'd second that amendment.
Okay, Commissioner O'Dorisio.
So just to clarify, so right now you're recommending that we do this every 3 years?
No.
No, 10.
No.
That's what I'm confused.
Commissioner O'Dorisio, if I might try there.
Let me ask them. You're asking to base it on the index, right?
So currently, the requirement in our development standards is for us to do a new study every 3 years. We were recommending taking that out entirely, but we would also be okay just amending it to, say, 10 years instead of 3 years.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're removing the index.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm okay with Commissioner Tedesco saying as long as we don't remove the index, just in case we don't keep up with that obligation. Madam Chair.
Mary Hodge was ahead of you. Commissioner Hodge, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm okay with 10 years.
Okay, great. Commissioner Tedesco.
So to be clear, I never once indicated that I wanted to get rid of the consumer price index. I was actually supportive of the consumer price index. So please don't misconstrue what I said. So it's including the consumer price index and it's keeping in the review but changing the timeline to 10 years. And if we could we get staff to read back what the...
That's what I heard, and that's what I heard reflected back from staff. So thanks for the clarification.
All right, I have the amendment for this section. So this will change section 50611 from what was reflected in the staff report as being omitted to review every 10 years. The road impact fee study in this regulation shall be reviewed and evaluated by the impact fee administrator at least once every 10 years to determine if modifications need to be made.
Okay. All right. If folks are acceptable with those amendments, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move the approval of PLN 2019-00015, and I believe it's still based on 3 findings of fact and 1 condition. Am I correct? Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you for your hard work in putting this together. Seeing no other business, we are adjourned.